I think it was wrong.
Good morning, everybody, and very warm GFM welcome. As I said to Mayor Luca, he'll be thrilled that he's moving in the Regional Transport Committee to return it. So taking it closer to the East today and trying to move him around a little bit. I'm obliged to read a statement, but before I do, the toilets are through the door out in the area to the left, the councillors' green rooms. The unlikely event of an emergency, just follow the staff out downstairs and we assemble in the car park front entrance. So at this point, I just remind committee members and advisors that this meeting is being live streamed, will be recorded, will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting today and archived for a period of 3 years. To provide greater access to council debate, decision making and encouraging openness and transparency. I also remind all present that the local government decision making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public. The comments made during the meeting are subsequently challenged in court and in the court of law and are determined to be slanderous. In terms of apologies, I'm holding an apology from Your Worship Tanya Tapsell, and I understand Councillor Colin O'Brien is coming to represent RLC. Attendees on, are there any further apologies pertaining to being none? We've got nothing, sorry, Mel.
Sorry, geez, sorry, I'll take this side out. We wish the Mayor Bailington.
I'll also state at this point, as is customary in all my meetings, I give all politicians speaking rights, so go for it. We just need collective wisdom. So in terms of attendees, by Zoom we have Councillor Julian coming in from Kawerau, Glenn Crowther from Tauranga, Angus Hodgson is going to be joining us from Kiwi Rail, Deputy Mayor Leslie AM Council, Councillor intention to join the Zoom, as has Councillor Nees. Stacey Spall is an advisor to this committee from the Automobile Association. An apology here from her for lateness. And Greg, you have indicated an apology for an early departure. I will move those apologies. Secondly, the Honourable Ken Shirley. All those in favour, please say aye. Against carried. There's no public forum. Items not on the agenda or late items, there are none. There are no changes to the order of business. Any declaration of conflicts of interest, anybody pertaining to today's agenda? There being none, we will move on. The minutes for confirmation, the minutes of the 9th of March meeting. With someone with a reasonably good memory and who was there, I'd like to read those as a true His Worship Mayor Denia. Commissioner Selwood, you happy to see that? Commissioner Selwood, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against carried. Are there any matters arising from those minutes, which is on page 8? Any matters arising? There being none, we will move on, and we are now on to reports. And Ollie, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. And you're going to lead us through the chairperson's report, which commences on page 21. Oliver, floor yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take the report broadly as read, but just draw members' attention to a few salient points. First of all, a brief update on the government policy statement for land transport. Many of you will know that in the development of the RRTP, the GPS is sort of our North Star in terms of the government's priorities for land transport over the upcoming 10 years. Due to Cyclone Gabrielle, the GPS was delayed and is still yet to be released in draft form. However, we have it on good authority that the draft GPS should be going to Cabinet for discussion next week. So we should be able to provide an update to this committee in relatively short order as to the likely timescales with its release. Just wanted to reassure the committee that in the absence of GPS, staff are still progressing well with the development of our RTP 2024. We are leaning on the current GPS 2021, as well as the early signals we've had around the likely inclusions in GPS 2024. Regional speed management. So as you all know, it's the responsibility of the regional council to develop a regional speed management plan. A lot of the work is delivered by the territorial authorities. I have good authority that all of our territorial authorities are in the drafting process. Some have concluded their first drafts, so I'd just like to call out Rotary Lakes, who voted recently to take their speed management plan out for consultation later this year. So those at this point seem to be progressing well. We'll keep the committee advised on progress. Land Transport Road Safety Amendment Bill. I don't think there's any action for this committee. Just wanted to make the committee aware that that has now hit the floor of Parliament. We'll keep you updated if there are any opportunities or implications that arise. Vehicle exhaust emissions amendment rule. This is currently open for feedback. Staff at the regional council within the policy team looking at potential opportunities here, and I've been told that if there are any implications, those will be reported through the regional council's strategy and policy committee. But I will of course keep this committee updated with anything of relevance. And then finally, the sub-regional road safety updates. There's a comprehensive update appended to the Chair's report, which shows a healthy programme of initiatives that are being or have been rolled out over the last quarter. One thing I'd particularly like to draw members' attention to is the winter vehicle safety checks. So these are pit stop style events that have been taking place across the region. So far, we've had events in Papamoa, Whakatane, Tonga, and Kawerau. These events allow members of the public to drive in and get key aspects of their vehicle checked to make sure they're winter ready. So that's class for twirl license, tyres, windscreen wipers, mirrors, indicators, across lights. I've been told that these events have proved popular and have been very well received by the community. In terms of verbal updates, just around regional council personnel, I'd like to welcome two new members of the transport planning team. So we've got Nikki Carling, formerly of Rotary Lakes, and Tia Mares, formerly of Whakatane District. We're both with us today. They'll both be doing work to support this committee, and I'm sure in future meetings they will be in our seats presenting to you on matters. That concludes my update around the Chair's report. We're happy to answer any further questions or clarification.
Wait for the GPs. Any questions? Anybody? Yes,
Spano.
We should be looking at.
You've got vehicle exhaust emissions in focus here. In the last few years, there's sort of a lot of information coming to light about emissions from car tyres. I've got a report in front of me that suggests they're 1,850 tonnes more polluting than what comes out of the exhaust pipe. So I'm just wondering how you put that in context, because I don't know any car that operates without tyres, and if they're more polluting than what comes out the tailpipe, I'm not sure if you're going to give that any consideration. And also, to put things in context, in my town, when you drive around the streets on a winter day, you can smell a lot of smoke. That's got to be more polluting than what comes out the tailpipe as well. So those two aspects, I mean, putting it in context, Euro 5, Euro 6 standards, very, very low emissions. But nevertheless, the pollution is coming from the tyres themselves. What's your take on that?
Through the chair, I think it's correct to acknowledge that pollution exists from the full life cycle, whether that's the production of vehicles, rubber on the road, or emissions out the tailpipe. Through the RRTP process, staff look at all the available evidence to come up with headline targets that will help us move towards our goals as a region and alignment with sort of the national policy in time. In relation to wider air quality, I think there have been some huge success stories in this region, things such as reducing the reliance on solid fuel in Rotorua, and also the Manganui airshed in Tauranga have both been shown as great initiatives to improve the wider air quality. So yes, very good points. Staff will continue to review all available evidence as we develop policy.
Just in addition to that, sorry, Mayor, particularly with car tyres and the way that we monitor air quality, it's the particulates and car tyres that are to the atmosphere, very fine particulates. I think it's fair to say that even our monitoring sites, they do record the amount of particulates in those locations, and it's important that we continue to monitor that and understand it. But I think what we're seeing is also a reduction in just straight out tailpipe emissions, and this is becoming an emerging source of concern for us, and as obviously we'll keep that in the monitoring space. We are actually understanding what the sort of level of PM3s are in the atmosphere in certain locations right now. Regional Council has those monitoring locations around the region, so there's something that we can bring to the conversation.
Can I just respond to that? Car tyres aren't just made of rubber. They're complex composites. 40% of a car tyre is made up of nanoparticulate carbon, and then there's all the chemicals that come off. And of course, the heavier the car gets, I mean, one car is not like the other. The heavier it gets, the more particulates come off. So I think it's something that's getting increasing focus these days, and I'm not sure what the solution is.
Would you like us to pursue it further, or bring back a brief paper on it in the next meeting, which is, I say, will be in Whakatane?
I'm just interested in how we put everything in context.
Chair, can I, a point of clarification, Euro 4, 5 and 6, is that for both petrol and diesel, or is that just diesel engines?
Through the chair, I would need to check further.
My understanding is it's just diesel, but I may stand to be corrected there.
Is this in relation to the feedback requested on the amendments?
No, it just relates to the vehicle remorse amendment. You make reference to the Euro standards there, but my understanding was that that only applies to diesel engines. Unused import diesel.
Yes. I will clarify all that.
Look at the key members of our air quality team are based in Whakatane. Would you like me to ask them to make contact with your office for briefing?
Yeah, I guess my question is better framed this way. If there's 1,850 tonnes more pollution coming off the tyre, why even bother about the tailpipe? Anyway.
Would you like the team to make contact with your office?
Yeah, no,
Okay. Okay, I think that's the whole report. It's okay, it's been, I will move it. It's been seconded by the Honourable Ken Shirley. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. David, a very detailed report. We want to do it justice. It's of considerable interest to the whole region. And I'll just invite you to take a bit of time on it. Would you like questions through the presentation or detailing? It might be easier to take questions as we go through it.
Thank you,
It's quite substantial.
Yeah, look, I'll take the report substantially as read because I've got like that way of putting that. The presentation steps through the main points in the report anyway, and I'm as always happy to take questions as we go. As usual, there's some national context and some local context, so we'll just quickly go through this. Next thing we can drivers. Yes. Okay, so just a few quick highlight things. You're all aware of Budget 23. There was a reasonably significant quantum of funding for Waka Kotahi in the budget, $1.3 billion. Key things around that, that $1.3 billion is targeted at 8 different areas, and they are summed up in the report for you. Over the period right through to 29-30, so it's not a huge dollar funding in the next NLT period, and you spread it across 29-30 and 8 different areas. It doesn't necessarily go a long way, but it does help us with, for example, the public transport gap that we have been experiencing, one because of the effect of COVID, but also because of the changes in fee structure, both temporary and now permanent. That funding of $140 million for the boost in public transport dollars spread into the far over the 149 between ourselves and yourselves. So it's not just about the 60 odd million of that funding is to top up the NLTP for the higher costs that are resulting from emergency works responses, and further 275 million, is allocated to increase and continue cyclone recovery funding. And there was an initial quantum of 250 million, but this is an additional 275 million to continue. And for us in this region, that's particularly around Statewide 25 things get rid of that in that area. Although that said, there are impacts right throughout the region, just more significant ones obviously in that Statewide 35, Statewide 2. There is $140 million spread over the next 7 years for resilience work, and that resilience work is focused on state highways. It is around mitigating the costs associated with climate changes. So, an example I gave at the Waikato one is, because it's a very live example, State Highway 25 on Coromandel. Are we going to move that road? No, there's nowhere to put it. Are we going to build a 4-lane highway? No. But what we can do is do a whole lot of work to make sure that we minimise frequency closures use, so like catchment, and also get ourselves into a position where when those stops occur, there are other transport options. So, for example, we have on the Blue Highway, which is looking at both passenger transport and freight transport options using shipping. We're doing some work on the airports and looking at increasing the capacity of airport infrastructure so that you take freight planes. Those kind of things. And this is some of the music work that we'll be doing over here in the Bay. Statewide 35 is very, very similar to Statewide 25. It's not very practical to move that road. It is a lifeline. It is the only way in and out. And so we need to do some work on what does resilience look like. And that $140 million will go towards helping with that. There's also $100 million repayable grant for the Clean Car Discount Scheme, because that has created, if you like, a hole in our expenditure and our budget. And that is to help us incentivise the idea to the low emissions vehicles. And finally, and Angus might get some points around this, there's an additional set of funding to the railway inventory business to offset reduced revenue from passenger numbers, etc. over the long term. So it's a pretty comprehensive quantum of funding, but as I say, $1.3 billion will be spread across all those areas. People get a bit excited about that number. It's actually quite spread. I'll pause there in case there are any questions. Okay, speed management plan. Sure.
David, just people on Zoom have just asked us if we can speak more clearly. So bring it right up.
I'll speak more slowly and more clearly.
Like an ice cream.
I apologise.
They're having difficulty hearing on the Zoom.
So speed management planning, really this is set out in the report in quite a bit of detail, but just to reiterate the new deadlines for this full speed management plans, and we've already touched on those. It sounds like they have plenty ahead of the game. 5th of October 23 is the final date for publication of consultation drafts for speed management plans. 29 March 2024, the final drafts will be due for certification. Those dates are an attempt to align as best as possible with the regional transport planning process so that we don't end up in a situation where we have a discontinuity, if you like. And they should be manageable for most RCAs. On the state highway speed management plan front, we are working to similar timeframe, and we're looking at having our interim plan certified by the director. It was supposed to be a couple of weeks ago. There's a little bit of a delay with that, but we are on track to have our interim speed management plan certified so that we can start moving forward with that top 1% that we now have from the Prime Minister and the Minister, and the long-term speed management plan, which will follow that same time frame that we just talked about. Just one thing to note, the interim speed management plan, which is what we will be implementing pretty much from the start of this year, includes implementation of the speeds that came into legislation around schools, those automatic speed changes, Marai, town intersection speed zones. Those will all be implemented as part of the interim speed management plan.
David, just pause one moment. This question may be
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David, do you have any idea about which roads are included in those 1% state highways that are now the special focus?
I do. Off the top of my head, none in the Bay of Plenty. So there are some high priorities in the Bay. They will be moved into the full speed management plan, the interim speed management plan. From memory, the section of State Highway 2 that is in the interim speed management plan is not in the Bay. State Highway 25 and 25A are in the interim speed management plan 1%. State Highway 39, which is not in the Bay either.
David, just pause again. Oliver.
Through the chair, sorry, it was just a point of clarification in relation to the chair's reports. So the Euro standards apply to both diesel and petrol vehicles, and this is in relation to water vehicles.
Thanks, Oliver. Back to you, David.
That was quick. Okay, little conversation about bitumen supply. So, with the changes at Marsden Point and the exiting of Z Energy from the market around bitumen supply, we asked for we undertook a review of the bitumen supply chain to give ourselves a little bit of reassurance, but also to give yourselves a little bit of reassurance that the import market will continue to operate well. The Z Energy will exit the market towards the end of this year. They've indicated that they're no longer interested in being, and they have been the major source for imported bitumen product. Our review indicates that the market should be, there are enough players in the market to pick up that slack, and that we should have a reasonably good supply on an ongoing basis. We're going to continue monitoring that because obviously it's a significant challenge for us. But on a national scale, we don't see too many or any issues. There's some variation in plant capacity across the country, so it's one thing to bring bitumen in, it's another to turn it into a useful product that we can then use on our road surfaces. And so we have got potentially in the pipeline some challenges with plants. We're working with those existing plants at the moment to just give ourselves and yourselves by virtue of that some reassurance that we will have sufficient bitumen supply and in the right places, because one of the big challenges, obviously you know this, is transporting that stuff around. So we need plants, processing plants to be spread across the country.
David, just pause for 1 minute. Question, Michael.
Just in reference to the emergency works and the regulatory funds like we have. So it's just got in here around the $275 million allocated in 2023. Is that an ongoing sort of planned expenditure in terms of responding to that incident? 275 million in that year, but is there out years?
So the 275 is 23, 24. At the moment, no, we're not. We don't have these ongoing allocations.
So on David, Greg, then is Worship Mayor Luke, Greg.
Yeah, David, as you're involved in a lot of bitumen cartage. The question I want to ask, Waka are you looking at more bitumen emulsion so that can be applied over a longer season and it's a more safer product?
There is work being done at the moment on a range of options, including that about to try and extend the work season, because once the ground temperature drops below 80 degrees, we pretty much can't do whole bitumen work. And as you know, whole bitumen in a pothole doesn't stay very long, it won't bind to the road. So yeah, that amongst other things is work in progress at the moment to try and see any way we can extend the work seasons. One of the challenges, and I'll talk about it a little bit later with our maintenance program, because of the impact, we've talked about this before, of deferred maintenance over years and years as we are behind the eight ball. You combine that with current capacity and capability in the market with a short season, and we have a challenge. So short answer is yes, it's one of the options we're looking at.
It's Worship Mayor Luke.
Yeah, while you seem to think that global supply chains are quite robust at the moment for bitumen, given that the geopolitical situation is pretty tense these days, those supply chains can break pretty easily. In terms of bitumen alternatives, do you see anything viable like this tall pitch kind of option? Do we have options if the supply chains suddenly break?
So try that again.
Sorry, we've got IT trying to fix the sound. People I can't hear it all. Very successfully at the moment.
I was speaking really loudly to me.
Can you just repeat the way that was
Do you want to take us a pause from?
I mean, I feel like we can pause for the moment it's breaking.
Okay, but we'll take a 2-minute pause. You go for it. Okay. Talk amongst yourselves.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Test.
Okay, we'll get underway again. To those on Zoom, to Andrew and Glenn and Councillor from Kawerau, just grind us to a halt if you're having difficulty hearing. It's important that you also hear everything that's being said. David, back to you. Give it another go.
Right. So I'm no expert on the bitumen supply chain, but I'll try that again. The review that was done took a pretty wide look at the future supply chain, but absolutely there is no getting away from the fact that geopolitics being what it is, there could be a significant disruption. Do we have an alternative? The short answer is no. There's a lot of work being done on that. The work being done, for example, on the required option. We're continuing to do that work. At the moment, it'd be fair to say that that's not a viable option to the scale or the nature of the use that we're putting to, but it's got some potential. And it needs very, very thorough testing. Obviously, bitumen and its use on has been tried and tested for a long, long time. It's a very, very risk.
So boutique agriculture, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's got certainly what we've seen at the moment. For example, we have awesome application potential for cycle weight and those low weight, relatively low volume uses. But with a bit of work, it's absolutely got potential. Okay, let's move on. So VKT reduction program. As you'll know, 13th of March, the government announced some changes around reprioritising this work program and bringing a stronger focus, if you like, onto reducing light vehicle use in Tier 1 urban areas. The reason for that was that's sort of where 85% of the reduction around vehicle kilometres travelled is likely to come from. So we're very focused on working on those main areas, which is Tauranga essentially, in the case of this region, Tauranga and Hamilton for us. It doesn't mean, and I think this is the really key thing, it doesn't mean a change to the focus on public transport investment. That's not going to be, or we're only going to do that in Tier 1 areas now. What it means in terms of the other programs focused on vehicle kilometres travelled, the focus will be on in Tier 1 areas. So we'll continue to work with, the programs we're working with at the moment around, particularly alternative mobility. What we do know in this region, and I see this at Waikato, is Tauranga and Hamilton are both in the top 3 in the country of having the biggest number of the private vehicle, and also the greatest number of short journeys, sub 5 kilometres and sub 2 kilometre journeys in private vehicles. So there's quite a lot that can be achieved just in focusing in those areas. And that's about micro-mobility, so walking, cycling, those kind of options, which are, for obvious reasons, much more bang for your buck invested in a city context than with high density population than in other areas. I just want to reassure you that that doesn't mean refocusing on our public transport speed.
Everyone on Zoom, can you just give me a thumbs up that everything's going according to plan? Thanks, everyone. Okay, just worship there, Dean.
Very, very good question, David. Talking about Tier 1 urban areas and talk about Hamilton, Tauranga, Wellington and Christchurch, you also include in Western Bay as well.
So Tauranga, in the definition of Tier 1, Tauranga includes Western Bay and Hamilton includes Waipara and Waikato districts. So I should preface that by saying yes, definitely Western Bay and Tauranga. Just in terms of milestones around the VKT reduction program, these are principally around funding. So we've had expressions of interest, funding coming in, funding applications coming in. Those are being processed at the moment. We've got regional partnerships teams working with those Tier 1 councils, the Bay District Council, for example. And over the next little while, Ministry of Transport will start looking at a draft GPS that includes VKT reduction, so they're working on the draft at the moment. They will start socialising that and talking to councils about what does that mean. And we're looking to start those reduction programs kicking off in December, or later in the year. Just wanted to touch on, at a national level, the Māori bilingual signs, which is critical that we're doing that in Rotorua, which bilingual city. As you're aware, we've opened consultation on 94 signs. And those are the signs that were considered to be perhaps most impactful in terms of vital, but also manageable, and also the signs that are most likely to roll over in terms of the low cost way of rolling this out. And what I mean by that is we are not going to go and replace all of the signs all at once. What we're going to do is replace those signs as and when they wear out, or as and when new signs are required because of new route options or changes to existing road layouts. For the most part, in spite of perhaps some of the media, they've actually been really well received. And we've had relatively high level of support for the bilingual signs. I did see a rather ironic post in one of the media that said, gosh, it's going to be hard to find Whakatane in Taupo once the bilingual signs roll out. So there is quite a bit of support and quite a bit of humour around, I suppose, some of the pushback. But I've seen some of the signs, they are very easy to follow, they are very easy to read. Okay. Get along to the Bay specific updates. So just wanted to talk a little bit about our maintenance and operations program because obviously it's one of the things people see the most and it's one of the things we get the most community feedback from. We've had a pretty tough year in a maintenance and operations sense, as have all of you. Notwithstanding that, we managed to do 86.2% of the forecast delivery of our program in the Bay of Plenty, which is a phenomenal effort, given the extent of disruption we've had due to weather events. That does mean that going into the next year, we are still widely able to the tune of 14% of our work program. And next year was an ambitious work program anyway. So it goes to the point really about how to extend that season because, if we're going to continue to have significant summer disruption, that makes that very small season even more constrained. We are still seeing quite a bit of disruption. We're still seeing an incredibly wet region. Don't have the slide here, but I put one up at the Waikato Regional Transport Committee meeting, which was Coromandel. At this time of the year, normally Coromandel would have had just over a metre of rain. We're currently sitting at 3.6 metres. That's the extreme in the region, but it is that trend, if you like, is mirrored across the entire region. We are in regional council. We're probably going to give you better figures than I am, but we are way past saturated in most catchments, and that means driving heavy machinery in some of these areas where there are repairs required becomes very, very difficult. But notwithstanding that, we still delivered a pretty significant program of works. We're expecting a tough winter. We're expecting lower than expected delivery of the maintenance work that we can do during winter, and again, partly that's because of the saturated catchments. And we've been very clear with the public, you are going to see potholes, you are going to see disruption from slopes. What we are doing is having a really good look at how we are deploying our maintenance contractors and making sure that they are ready, that they have equipment in the right places, they have capacity in the right places, so when we get those disruptions through slopes, etc., they're able to clear them as quickly as possible. A few things we learned during Gabriel and environments actually, when you do get those closure events, and especially State Highway 35, and you're isolated on one side of them, instead of taking 3 days, it takes you a week to clear the slope. So we've looked at where those teams are deployed, particularly as we know weather events are coming.
David, just because you go to quick.
David, you might be touching on somewhere in your presentation. It's about resilience in the roading networks that keep going back to and fixing, and now we have to build resilience. The question I have is, when you build or choose a piece of road that you want to build resilience and you choose the detour, to do that. What's the consultation to councils, transport industry, the freight sector, in regards to what those details are and how safe they are? And secondly, we need to know that consultation early so we can plan our freight movements. We can tolerate a disruption because you get better productivity and you repair and your resilience. We need to know early so we can build that in with our customers and everything else, and the councils that need to know that this road will be disrupted for a period of time on a detour.
Yeah, so I wasn't, it does touch on the report, it wasn't attached on, but it's a really good point. So when I spoke, for example, about the resilience work and looking at alternative modes of transport, there's a national piece of work that's just been initiated, which is also looking at where we have those disruptions, what does that mean for the local road network? And too often, and we acknowledge this, too often we find ourselves in an emergency situation where we have a road closed quite a long time, say or two, and we are pivoting very quickly onto a local road situation, which is inappropriate for the vehicles travelling on it. And we know that. Well, one, it stresses that network out. Two, it creates an ongoing damage situation for that network, and often we don't have an idea of what the precondition was. So we get into this conversation with the district council saying, well, we'll put it back, but we don't know what we're putting it back to. And three, we end up with a heavy vehicle situation where we have got local road bridges, for example, crossings that are not suitable for those heavy vehicles, particularly as we're getting into the 50 metres and the bigger vehicles. If and when we get battery vehicles, they'll be 60 plus with an extra axle. So that's, so there is a piece we're actually looking at, well, what does resilience look like in terms of those alternative routes, and to what extent do we invest in making sure we have resilient alternative routes rather than the main route? We have to see, for example, on State Highway 2, there are parts of that State Highway that will continue to be subject to slopes no matter what we do. So what do the alternative routes look like? Because as you said, very many of the places we know they're frequent flyers, right? So that's a piece of work that is just starting.
We should be with you.
Yeah, while we're on the theme of resilience, I guess the latest cyclonic events bring that into stark relief, the resilience of the road network, and especially bridges. It turns out to be quite critical. I presume that when we rebuild the 30 or so bridges that are missing or got destroyed on the east coast, that we won't be building the same types of bridges, and that we'll be looking at single span type bridges. And for somebody who wants to build a business case for a second bridge, as I do, you will come out of that with lots of costings. I know you've already got an Excel spreadsheet that downloaded from some of the old costings for bridges, but for somebody who wants to build a business case and wants to obtain costings, can they come to you for those? And this also relates to the Coastlands Integrated Growth Development, because right near our main bridge, our only real bridge, we're going to put it's a centre of heavy industry and more housing development, which is going to put even more pressure on our only main bridge, which has got pillars in it, and I think quite vulnerable. So for somebody who wants to build a business case, would you be the people to come to get some numbers? Because you'll have those numbers now that you've got cost 30 bridges.
Yes, so our investment advisors are pretty much constantly in touch with your team, your transport team. So through them, you should be able to source whatever the base costings are that we have. Just a couple of points on that. Many of those bridges are being replaced or were constructed 40s and 50s and 60s. So the technology has shifted. There's nothing inherently wrong with a pilot bridge. But increasingly, one of the things you've got to do is look at the catchment and say, well, what's the land use in the catchment? What's the risk that you're building? So it's not just about crossing the stream, it's about essentially building something that's fit for the whole catchment. One of the challenges for us is for example, in those bridges, that catchment use has changed very significantly in the period between the bridge being built. And we don't control that land use decision. The same would go for Whakatane, for example, and yes, the bridge, the real bridge, we don't have any control apart from as a submitter from the land use changes that yourselves choose to make. So that fit for purpose changes over time, and necessarily that changes the costs as well. But yeah, those current costs, our investment advisors will be sharing those with you to the extent that they can. There are many other drivers of those costs as well, which we're experiencing at the moment around the price of steel, price of procurement, supply chains, to your point before. So absolutely, that should be able to get the most current data through your team, and they should be able to get it from us.
Sorry, Mike, through you, Mr. Chair, just into the room. Later in the report, we talked about our RTP program, and resilience is one of your key target headline measures. There's an opportunity to sort of delve into that a bit more, what it means for this region and what this committee's response should or could be as a result of that, notwithstanding that there's already work done by Commitee around resilience and assessment and so on and so forth. But we can have a deeper conversation.
Yeah, that's really important. The 40 driver's licensing. So it's a sort of a good news story. Because of the impacts that occurred in Gisborne, as you'll know, we were doing a driver's licensing trial, community-led driver's licensing trial, and it's because of the impacts of Cyclone Gabrielle and the closure of State Road 35, we, along with Tairāwhiti, revamped rural education. It's a rural education activities program, community provider, moved that program from the East Coast to Portuguese. That program is targeted at essentially enabling those who might not otherwise be able to access a driver's license for a range of reasons, costs, accessibility, literally being able to physically get to a place to do a driver's license, and therefore unable to get a job or unable to be mobile, to be able to do that. So that's been in place since April and working really well, and we are now looking at what a long-term permanent situation might be from a driver education point of view in a Portuguese. It's been very successful. The program is also in Northland and will restart Gisborne once things settle down a little bit. I can't give you numbers of how many people have been through it. We don't have that reporting, but all of the indications are that it's been very well received. It's been really successful. Just a couple of dates on, I suppose, some ongoing work that we've been doing. Firstly, the safety improvements that are with Awakiri to Whakatane. Some of you will be aware that we had a series of community open days to talk about the safety improvement plan. We got 200 odd people attended those open days. I went to all of them. It was really interesting, really positive, really good engagement with the community. We got around about 500 kind of, if you like, individual pieces of feedback about specific issues that we need to address, and so the team have gone back, taken all of that back and gone back to the design to have a look at how we might address the concerns that were raised, or some of the ideas actually, was quite good ideas put forward. We'll be coming back out with a, reviewed detailed design as a consequence of that a little bit later this year, so that we can go and seek funding for construction to begin. One of the very strong pieces of feedback, and we were very comfortable with this, was why not implement speed first, then start doing the physical works, and absolutely that's what the team we've gone back to. So really good engagement actually with the community on that. Saturday, we went to Road to Portuguese, the safety improvement work there is underway between Waitahi Valley and Waitahi Valley Back Road and Appleton Road. I know there are some issues around the situation the other day, the Hukawa tunnels in that area. Again, that's part of that work around shoulder widening the median barrier, and there is some detailed design work at the moment underway for the intersection at Waitahi Valley Back Road and Ahiwa Beach Road, which is had that terrible fatality over a year ago now, but there'll be quite a few nemesis there. That's a bit of a unique design because of the nature of that intersection. Two teardrop shapes that face each other that enable the traffic to flow but still cause it to slow. That's still divided. Still a little bit of design work to be done and some property purchase to complete, but those works are underway. Stanaway 2 way to Mokoroa. Stanaway 2's been in the media a little bit of late. The 40-kilometre corridor there is essentially having quite a lot of work widening the centre line, roadside safety barriers, intersection improvements. The original part of the project is near completion, and then we'll start moving into flexible medium barrier installation once that occurs. Making really, really good progress there. There is a really high level of frustration on delays, and so most of the works are being done at night to the extent that they can be. But even so, when you put the traffic management in, if you don't, then remove it every night and put it back again. And so that is causing delays, and we've acknowledged that that's causing delays. That combined with Tauranga City Council's cycleway project at Wairoa River, they are causing frustration, they are causing delay. We are doing everything we can to try to minimise that, but regrettably, that is unavoidable. The other thing I suppose to be aware is that the work that will continue into the summer will absolutely continue to cause those delays. So we'll see those right through the summer, right through to probably this time next year. That's the on that. There's not much more I can say.
You did. 10 minutes starting.
What do I say?
Yeah, look, it's, I just want to acknowledge the frustration that our committees had on that, but I also want to acknowledge what you said, and that I understand you've done what you can and that you can't just magically solutions up. It seems to me that the really big delays are when you go do any serious work between Mokoroa and Tauranga. If you do, most of the work has been between Katikati and Mokoroa, and that hasn't actually caused big delays. I mean, you slow down and go faster again. It's not a big deal, frankly, but it's just those little delays anywhere near Tauranga, and it just makes it painful.
And the real killer is resurfacing, because for a whole bunch of reasons that can't be done overnight. And that's the thing that causes delays really. The one thing that I think we do need to do some work, and I've had a talk with the team at Commitee, and I know they're talking to your staff about how we manage the rat run. And whether there's a case for actually, rather than having rat running, actually formalising some of those alternate routes and doing some work on what we do, because it's a very difficult stretch of road that doesn't have an obvious alternative route, and it's part of the problem.
Yeah, I think with that it would be, regardless of the outcome we have with rat running, I think it's important to work through process, the pros and cons and the costs and what might be possible and what's, because stopping people using their local road is obviously problematic, but clearly some people are abusing that.
Very much so.
You did talk about more works going on for the next year. Again, is that in the sort of more, the roundabouts? And
yes.
So it's not the Amok Road to So I don't intersection as much.
No, so what I see is we put the media barriers and the first thing we have to just put in the turnaround bays, and so that where possible we do that using roundabouts. Not always, but there are I think 3 or 4 roundabouts still to come in that section. So that's what I'm talking about. And then the media barriers can go. Thank you.
Welcome, councillor Nees. Floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Look, my apologies if this has already been covered. I've been struggling a bit with the sound. But the question I've got is with regards to page 39 of the Waka Kotahi report, and it's under important funding information. So it says that the GPS 24 is going to provide direction for investment from multiple funding sources for land transport, not just the National Land Transport Fund, and says that RLTPs need to include activities that could be funded from the NLTF, the CERF, and other sources of funding. So I'm seeking recommendation from Waka Kotahi that all of these projects with alternative funding sources should be included in the prioritised list and be prioritised. I asked this because we ran into difficulty last time where there was guidance that anything that was already funded from another source was in a separate table, and our regional transport committee didn't prioritise those. And then when the funding for example, State Highway 2 was taken out with a change of government, that project was left in limbo, was out of priority. So I wonder, David, if you could give us some guidance on how the Regional Transport Committee can discharge that requirement that may be coming through the GPS?
Yes, so increasingly, well, I shouldn't say increasingly, what we know is that transport's is no longer funded just through the NLTP or NLTF. So absolutely, at a regional transport committee level, we should be acknowledging all of the projects, all of the priorities, and the potential that they'll be funded through other funding sources, ones we currently know about, but also ones that might come about in future governance or as a consequence of the GPS when it leans. So to your question, Jane, yes, I think that is something that we should be looking at in the regional transport planning process. Looking at like out of my left eye, but yeah, absolutely, we need to make sure that we have got the list of priorities regardless of potential funding source.
I can see the ghost of Mayor Weber here.
It's funny, I was just thinking about it.
Michael, here this question, Mayor Luca, Michael.
Just in terms of it as in principle, yes, certainly something that's consideration, and the committee does need to understand the investment source, its likelihood of getting investment in order to help its prioritisation process. So it's a matter of principle. There are some complexities, but we won't go into those now. I think that's something that the committee will need to sort of flesh out as part of this process.
Mayor Luca.
Yeah, I just want to make the link between sustainability and waste in road services. We generate 4 million end-of-life tyres in this country every year, and I've seen some examples of their use of mashed up tyres for road surfaces, for making road surfaces. Is this something that we're contemplating, they've got eyes on here, or we just exclude it as a possibility? What is your experience? What do you know about it?
I have literally no experience with tyres being used as road surfaces. I'm aware from my previous life in the regional council that tyres in a wet environment have significant leaching issues, especially when they're chipped up, because you increase the surface area exposure and oxidation. It's pretty nasty things in tyres. I do know that they are used, they can be used as ballast if they are wrapped and sealed in some examples, and I know Netherlands and Denmark, for example, they are used as solving ballast. I know there's lots of work going on about what we might use West Tigers for, but I certainly have no experience, and I'd be very surprised if they were being used, contemplated for use in an environment like our road is a high environment, high environmental exposure. I think discharge, it is issues with discharge.
Well, I know it's been done in certain countries, but we're not doing anything.
Welcome, Glenn, the floor is yours.
I was just going to mention that through the chair to Mayor Luca and David, that my understanding is Toi Opomai had done research in that area. And I know there's work that's happened in Taranaki. I know Tuhoi have been investigating it, as some of you know. So I think it would be, from a sustainability perspective, a really good thing to try to integrate that understanding. I don't know how that can happen, but I thought if Toi Opomai had done it right here in Rotorua, then it seemed, worthwhile not losing all that, intellectual property that presumably exists somewhere in the new Polytech system.
Honourable Ken Shirley.
Yes, referring back to State Highway 2, could you give us some confirmation of when the Omokaroa, I won't call it a roundabout, an entry-exit is to be progressed? It's a very serious choke point and bottleneck. My other question relates on that same route to the bridge across the Te Puna stream on the Te Puna side of because there's no alternative route. It's a very narrow bridge. If that bridge ever went out for whatever reason, an accident there, everybody on the Waihi side of that bridge has got to go back round over the Kaimais. There's no alternative route.
So the roundabout is progressing at the moment. I think there's serious move towards construction towards the end of this year in November. That will address it will open up the Omokaroa to the extent that it will address the safety issue of that section. What it won't do is anything for congestion. So it'll be at that, but it will address that safety issue. I don't know about the Te Puna bridge, so I can't answer that issue directly. But it might be the only bridge that has no alternative in the country, unfortunately.
Glenn and Mayor Luca, I've got Michael to make a few comments around the subject that's coming up quite regularly this morning. Mike?
In terms of the use of rubber tyres in bitumen, I'm not going to wade into the subject matter expert space of being bitumen master chef. However, there is some body of evidence, including the Toi Opomai work around its use and not being used. And I think Michael Tahi's got some practice and decisions that they can possibly fit back to the committee regarding to why it's not used, particularly on state highways. And it is very much in alignment with the earlier statements around the environmental impact, technical difficulties of its application, and some of the research reports earlier, that kind of 10 years old now, so they're a bit older, around they have assessed it. So perhaps a sort of a brief summary on that space will help to just highlight the issue and just make it easier to understand.
You'll bring back to the meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are we on the home straight, David?
Yeah, that is the report.
Any further questions, anybody? There being none, happy to move your report.
So, yeah.
Second to his worship, Mayor Luca, I'll put it all those in favour and say aye. It's carried. We will adjourn for morning tea and we'll come back at 10 to 11. I invite the staff to join us on stage. Welcome back, everybody, and we're on item 7.3, page 51 of the agenda. Oliver, the floor's yours.
Thank you, Chair. I have some slides to support this item, so I'll just wait for those to come up on screen and I'll get going. Thank you, Amanda. So, through the chair, this report is feeding back the direction that staff we received from members on the workshop that we held last month in relation to the strategic framework development for RLTP 2024. So just to start with a bit of background, as you all know, a review is in progress with the aim of producing a new RLTP by April of next year. The RLTP is a strategic document that sets out the direction for the region's land transport programme over the next 30 years and is supported by a 10-year programme of works. It contains two key components, the strategy and the programme. Just a reminder of what those date. So the meeting on the 9th of March, the committee endorsed a high-level strategic approach through a briefing paper presented to the committee. And as I mentioned, we held a workshop on the 5th of May where members provided direction around the development of the strategic framework, namely the vision, objective themes, objectives, and headline targets. So just a quick recap. You've all seen this timeline before, so we have shuffled on another stage since we last met. So you can see we've had that first workshop now, still awaiting the GPS, but hopefully that's not too far away. So there we are, about a third of the way along at the June meeting. I'll talk more about the August workshop that's now been diarised, what we hope to achieve there at the end of the presentation. So a very brief recap on the purpose and aim of the workshop that was undertaken last month. So it was to develop the vision. The vision isn't required by the LCMA, but can be useful in setting the scene. We discussed objective themes and objectives, headline targets. Just to recap on some important notes, there is a nationally developed guide for the development of RLTPs. That was developed by the Transport Special Interest Group, TSIC, which I am co-convener, and that guide has been endorsed by Commitee. So far, we are following the guidance pretty much to the letter. Staff can continue to work with broad direction of the committee, but we're looking to sort of start to lock down some of the elements of the strategic framework today. Yeah, that's all for this slide. Just a quick recap of the TSIC guide. So you can see at the top, not coming through very clearly on the projector, but there's the first three items which staff are busy progressing in the background. In terms of where the conversation is with the committee, we are there in that green box in the strategic framework. You'll see there's still a fair few steps to come. The next being the 10-year transport investment priorities, which we will start to discuss at the next workshop. So jumping into the feedback from the workshop itself. You will have noticed in the paper that there are a number of resolutions that we're seeking today. To try and make it easier, I'm going to walk you through each one step by step. I'll take direction from you, Mr. Chair. Would you rather do all of the decisions at the end, or do you want to do them as we go through?
Take us one at a time, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly.
And I'm mindful we don't want to spend too much time on the vision statement. It's only for a week redesigning there.
So in relation to the vision, the RTC raised the following key points: the need for the vision to drive regional priorities and investment plans. Resilience came up a lot, and the fact that it was crucial, particularly regarding climate change and the increasing prevalence of severe weather events. It was also noted that there is a sort of tension between resilience and efficiency, and the need to balance these trade-offs. And also, we had a fairly lengthy discussion around the inclusion of the word equitable. Staff also challenged the committee to consider potentially a shorter, more concise vision statement. Other regional councils do use more concise statements. We put up the example of Waikato's vision, and the RTC requested staff to go away and propose a simplified vision statement for consideration. So following the workshop, staff reflected on the direction given. Whilst we feel it's important to reflect the need for a resilient and equitable transport system, staff would recommend that this would better be addressed in the objectives rather than the vision itself. We've got two options for the vision statement there. One is retaining the current vision statement from RLTP 2021. The other is the simplified statement that staff have come up with, which reads as: our transport system meets the needs of our diverse communities and regional economy. Given that the issues admitted in option 2, resilience, efficiency, safety and multimodal access, are proposed to be captured in the RLTP 2024 objectives, staff would suggest that the committee considers endorsing option 2, but of course it's at the discretion of members.
Want to have that debate now?
More than welcome to.
Thoughts, colleagues? Either go with the status quo or go for a compressed version. Leah, Dina first.
Yeah, I'm happy with the simplified version as long as you say, the objectives, which I think we would in favour, are in there somewhere as the objectives rather than the vision. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
Commissioner Selwyn?
I agree, I think the short and skinny vision statement is good.
As long as it's captured.
I mean, there are some issues under the objectives, and I think we need to bolster them.
Yes, Chair, through, I certainly support the simple one, version 2, but I'm jumping the gun a bit, but I'm growing concerned with the inconsistency with the RTP. Smart growth, we seem to be out of sync with that, particularly for the Western Bay. TSP. Sorry, wasn't it? TSP, I'm terrible with 3-letter acronyms. So that concerns me, and then we sort of had the debate with congestion and the housing issue, which is so critical to this, and I'm just not sure that we've actually captured or made adequate emphasis and provision. Our vision is to drive regional priorities and investment plans, and critical to that is going to be addressing congestion and the housing challenge that we have in the relationship between the two. So I'm just sort of flagging that as I think we've got to do a bit of work on that.
And I know Commissioner Selwyn's also flagged that. So the spare Glenn, I'm sorry, you're a long way away. You only know that if you're in the room with us here, so hard to see your hands. But go for it, Glenn.
Yeah, sorry, it's probably equally hard for me to hear what people have said, but I guess I'll just throw out there with my environmental sustainability hat on that my concern with option 2 is not how simplified it is, because I do like simplified statements, but it just seems to be a bit meaningless almost in a way, or perhaps even worse, that it takes us back to how the transport system was geared up a few years ago, which was to prioritise the economy ahead of sustainability or ahead of environmental needs. So I'm all for meeting the needs of the economy, all for meeting the diverse needs of our communities, but to get rid of sustainable or to get rid of the whole aspect of supporting the environmental needs of our region seems to be throwing something out. And I understand it can be picked up elsewhere, but it makes me question what's the point of a vision statement, because anyone reading the other regional transport vision statements that I have seen from the last couple of iterations of transport plans around the country would notice that the other regions have more meaningful statements than what we're proposing here.
Oliver, you want to comment?
It's at the discretion of the committee. The vision is not a requirement under the LTMA. The benefit of a simplified vision would be that it is something that is easier to sort of push and hand things off. I would reiterate that all of the issues that are captured elsewhere, purely at the discretion of the committee.
I don't want to have to put it to a vote, but I feel like sorry, you're wishing me a
That's okay. Actually, I think Glenn has a point, and I also point out that the needs of the economy and the needs of the environment are actually, there's a significant amount of tension there. Actually contradictory with us. Anyway, so I don't like the word sustainability either, but for want of something better, it kind of does capture the environmental exigencies.
Commissioner Selwyn.
Chair, is a possible way forward. I'm thinking potentially a solution might be that we change option 2 to read our transport system meets the needs of our diverse community, our environment, and our regional economy.
Happy with that?
I'll move that. Chair.
Commissioner Selwood, you repeat it. Remember.
Just simply our environment. So our transport system meets the needs of our diverse communities, our environment, and our regional economy.
Okay, so myself, Councillor Shirley, Councillor Julian, Commissioner Selwood, Mayor Denia and Mayor Luca, they are the voters. Is there reasonable consensus to go with Commissioner Selwood's proposal? Okay, it's all done. Thank you. Liaisons, only members, yeah, but they're advisors. But Councillor Julian. Yeah. Oh, are you there, Neville? I think he's preoccupied with other matters in the project here.
I am here listening. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Wonderful, thank you. Moving on, back to you, Oliver. Objectives.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to objective themes. So objective themes just help to frame up the objectives themselves, put the categories to sit in. Again, these are not a requirement of the LTMA. It is something that we've used through our RLTP 2021. It is something that's recommended as best practice through the development guides that we are following. Points raised by members was that it seemed to make sense to use the 5 objective themes, given that it maps our objectives directly to the MOT framework, which is ultimately what the funding is predicated around. Staff took this as clear direction that the 5 objective themes should be maintained for RLTP 2024, and just looking for confirmation of that today.
Questions or comments, Commissioner Selwood?
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on the comments of Ken Shirley, I totally agree that actually there are 2 fundamental issues that are missing from our package of both objectives and headline targets. Certainly from Tauranga City's perspective, but I think this is also true of the wider region. The first is that transport should be an enabler of development and urban growth, and in particular housing supply. If we were to sum up quickly our 3 fundamental challenges at Tauranga City, I think top of the list would be the supply and cost of housing as being the most significant issue that we have to face. Secondly, our increasing carbon emissions and issues related to the environment. But thirdly, the issue of congestion. Now, I think we have carbon emissions in the environment reasonably well covered, but I don't think we have housing or congestion adequately covered. Whilst we do have economic prosperity, the headline target for economic prosperity is just an increase in freight. And while that's really important, the productivity of the city depends on mobility right across the city, not only just for freight, but also for small business and indeed individuals that are wanting to make trips to and from wherever their destinations are. So congestion is at the heart of the productivity and livability of the city that needs to be addressed. Just to give you a picture, I mean, if I think if we were to get all of the politicians across the sub-region in a room, they'd say top priorities for investment in transport, beyond public transport, in the sub-region are State Highway 2, State Highway 29, Hewletts, Hull and Tauranga. And my concern is that the way it's framed currently is that all of those priority projects will get a relatively low ranking because they don't address, because the objectives are not included around housing and transport. If you included those 2, then those 5 projects would have quite a considerable ranking. Now, just to give you a flavour, State Highway 29 is Tauranga City's top priority project, closely followed by Hewletts, Hull and Tauranga. State Highway 29 has the potential to enable another 25,000 homes and another 5,000 to 6,000 jobs in the Tauranga business estate. The cost of State Highway 29 is around $2 billion, circa. And if you were to divide that $2 billion by the 25,000 homes that project would enable, it works out around about $80,000 a home. Now, that might sound a lot of money, but I can tell you, over the time that project might be, the cost of homes in total are going to go up by a heck of a lot more than $80,000. So just enabling that project to bring on 25,000 homes would be a significant stimulus to our ability to meet our house pricing challenge. NZIER did a piece of work back in 2020 that said that if Tauranga fails to meet its housing supply, the net GDP loss to the city over a decade would be $3.5 billion. So for want of spending $2 billion, we lose $3.5 billion. So to my mind, we have to elevate and accelerate the importance of investment in those strategic roading connections, because by doing so, certainly in our patch, we can free up the existing old State Highway 29 that then provides a viable public transport corridor from Tauriko West, the Tauriko Business Estate, right away along Canberra Road, which will enable two-way bus services to and from the 70% of jobs that are along that corridor. So I'm very keen, Chair, to add to the recommendations that we have an additional objective theme and an associated objective around enabling housing supply. That would be the theme. Could be theme number 6 on the list of 5 that we have, and then there would be an objective around providing transport enabling sufficient housing to meet future demand. And then under our economic prosperity headline target, we have some targets relating to congestion, and that could be levels of service, times of heavy congestion being reduced. There's a whole range of statistics. I do note that the commentary says that we've had some difficulty in getting data to validate the congestion issue. I can tell you that Tauranga City Council and all councils are required to report to the Department of Internal Affairs on level of congestion. It's one of the performance metrics that we're required to provide. So I'm sure that those metrics could easily be adopted for the regional transport plan. So, Chair, I'm proposing a change to the recommendation and adding a 6, which says adds an additional objective on enabling housing supply. I'm trying to keep it simple. And 7 adds additional headline targets on congestion or congestion. I'll move that as motion.
I'll second that. Okay, it's open for discussion. Oliver, did you have a comment you want to make?
Yes, I just wanted to come back to the objective themes. Commissioner Selwood makes some very valid points. What I would suggest to members is we consider the risks of moving away from national guidance. It will put our LTP as an outlier. I think that the points the Commissioner raises do chime very well with proposed objective theme 3, which is inclusive access and also economic prosperity. I think there's also a risk that we start to put stuff in the RLTP that goes beyond the scope of what can be funded through the NRCF. And I wonder if we might be engineering a document that vastly exceeds its scope, and if that is effectively putting forward a programme that wouldn't attract funding, it would obviously be with the best intentions, but just my thoughts.
So then it's worship there, look at
Thank you, Chair. Just responding to that, actually to the contrary, I think we might be getting ahead of the game, depending on the direction of the election. Whilst we all know that's up for grabs and it could go either way, I think we need to be cognizant of what the opposition is saying on these very issues. And if I could just read to you National's policy on housing and transport, which says National will make the facilitation of housing growth an explicit goal of the government policy statement on land transport. And one of the funding criteria in the National Land Transport Plan, these changes will ensure government investment in new roads and public transport is prioritised in growth areas, unlocking vastly more housing. Now, if Labor, if Labor doesn't have an equivalent response, particularly given their focus on the housing crisis, that was, such an important priority for them when they first became government. And bear in mind, we're likely to have another GPS following the election, because it will be a new government. So I would be surprised if housing isn't also included at that time. So us thinking about that ahead of time, I think, is both prudent and strategically wise.
Point of clarification or up to others?
Yes, just a point of clarification. So I think it's fair to expect that the GPS may well change. However, I just want to make the point that the Ministry of Transport's objective framework does have cross-party support, so that is unlikely to change.
Okay, speaking to the recommendation on the floor, it's Worship Mayor Luke and then it's Worship Mayor Luke.
I think Commissioner Selwood rightly gets to the root cause of our traffic woes, which is the urban design and sprawl. Our whole system is predicated on urban sprawl. And the root cause of urban sprawl, of course, is growth. Growth underpins everything. And we've always got infrastructure chasing growth. So I think it's valid to make that reference to urban design, sprawl, whatever you want to call it. I think it's important. But to mention growth will probably be repugnant to every economist in the country and the government. But anyway, I can't help myself.
It's Worship Mayor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to agree with Commissioner Selwood. I think he raises some very valid points there. Enabling, when he first spoke, I thought, I answered from staff, do we really want to have to go a different direction and another one? And you can kind of put enabling housing in there, but it doesn't really fit very well. And inclusive access for me is more about public transport and that side of things. Economic prosperity sort of fits in there, but no, I think enabling housing is really where it's at. That gives a clear signal and support to the Western Corridor expansion, to Mokoro expansion, and probably some future ones as well. But I think that hits the nail on the head, and I agree, it's wise to put that in. I think it captures things that those ones do not. So I'm in support.
Hey, Michael. Ken Shirley, then Michael wants to make comments.
Thank you, Chair. I similarly support Mr. Selwood's proposals. To me, the sort of five we've got there, I sort of understand them, but they're sort of almost perfunctory, wishy-washy, meaningless sort of thing that everything has, economic prosperity, inclusive access to resilient security, environmental sustainability. Whereas the two that have been proposed are something tangible and you can directly relate to an action. And I agree with his analysis of the political landscape and strategic importance of perhaps getting ahead of the game. If there is a change, and on current polling it would seem quite likely, all governments run their course, there will be a new GPS and one of quite a different colour and perspective. And I think this would be far better positioning, and equally, if the current government's retained, which could happen too, then that they're a strong commitment to housing, they're almost embarrassed by their inability and frustration in delivery. So we won't be put in a bad box by having something that is aspirational and as direct and as tangible as that.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Michael's going to make a few pertinent comments. Then I'm not going to let lie on the table. I'm going to park this particular paper whilst Michael and Oliver and Commissioner Selwyn put their heads together and fine-tune recommendations, because there's general support around the table for the thrust and direction of Commissioner Selwyn. So, and then we'll come back to it, hopefully. So, Michael, some comments.
Just a couple of health checks, I think. In terms of the issue that's raised, to a sort of step back, is in terms of housing growth and what is it that Transport can do about that. We are downstream in terms of providing transport infrastructure to support growth or to enable other things. So it can be an enabler of certain kinds of activity and whatnot. So we don't directly solve the housing supply issue, but we enable. So transport's the plumbing of the economy. It's most certainly a huge piece of infrastructure response that creates better access for our communities and so on and so forth. So there is an integral link clearly between the two. One of the discomfort that you're sensing from staff, I think is fair to say, is just around the intent, and very happy with that level of intent. It's this is very specific, and it's it really does want to be a regionally significant issue. So there are elements in our conversation and in this document that I think this group really needs to agree and give us the direction on that these are significant across this region for this region. And I think if the committee is in agreement, then you're raising this to the level of regional significance, which is perfectly fine. And are there other elements and outcomes that are in this document and in these objectives that you want us to see a similar kind of approach? Because we are pulling that out of what are somewhat generalised themes, because they were themes in the beginning, and we're highlighting it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But are there other elements like that then? Because they do exist within those the objectives that you'd like to bring to the fore. I'd ask that you expand that thinking to say, well, actually, if we want to be specific about this particular issue, are there other issues within the document that we also need to raise as a regionally significant issue that we want to talk about in this document? That'll affect prioritisation. And I think that's a really important narrative that goes back into what we're telling our investors and other investors is this region's made a call around its prioritisation, and here's the rationale and evidence for that. So what you're doing, you're directing us to go and find the basis for that kind of response. So really just a health check and a bit of feedback from staff. Perfectly fine to do this, and we work on wording, but are there other things? Is this the most, what I would cautious about is this becomes the biggest issue for this region only. And I don't think that's true, but I think we just have to create a story that makes sure that all those issues come out in a similar way. That's what we're thinking about. Happy that you get it.
So, I was going to suggest I take a 5-minute break and you and the staff and Commissioner Selwyn put your heads together, because there's support for Commissioner Selwyn around the table. So take a 5-minute break, everyone on Zoom, and we'll come back with some appropriate wording that the committee can buy into. So I'll move to the German second on Care Shirley with our base out for 5 minutes. We'll now reconvene the meeting and just check that everyone on Zoom is on Zoom. First off, an apology to you, Councillor Needs. Are you there? Councillor
Yes,
Needs?
thank you. Yes.
An apology to you. You need to understand the screen with your faces on is all but out across the road from us. So it's hard to get your hand up. So and I know you had your hand up and you wanted to contribute.
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking about our discussion earlier this morning about the regional land transport plan being recommended to include other funding sources other than just the NLTF. So as a result of that, I was wondering if that's not a further reason for expanding the themes beyond what is just specified around guidance for the NLTF and the National Land Transport Plan. I'm thinking, for example, IE funding applications, and if everything is going to be prioritised, it may be of use to actually have that criteria in there to help gain access to other sources of funding, not just the NLTF.
I'm going to ask Michael to lead us through these recommendations and make appropriate comments where necessary, and we will also, Councillor Needs, tweak if necessary. So, Michael, going through them 1 to 7, go for it.
Happy to, and happy to take suggestions along the way to get the big right. So clearly, recommendation 1 needs to be done. Number 2, that we have endorsed the vision statement with the addition of the our environment dimension and the vision. It's really reasons for that. Number 3, we'd like to change to 6 objective themes. Sorry, I didn't spot that before amendment.
So this was to specify that outlined in the report and to add the additional 6.
There we go.
Well done.
Yep. Probably.
I'll just pause, Michael.
While we're on the first one, I'm just wondering, we say at our regional autonomy, whereas Ports of Tauranga is by far the biggest port in the country. It's of national significance, and we all know the statistics, because we're actually, it's more than just our regional economy, isn't it? It's actually, it's a national economy. 60% of our dairy, so 40% of our meat, all going out through Ports of Tauranga. And the transport's critical to have that port functioning.
Regional and national economy.
We have an obligation to the national economy with our transport system.
Through the chair, you could just remove the word regional. Through the chair, it's just a suggestion that we could remove the word regional so it reads our environment and our economy.
Yep.
Recommendation 4, into the discussion around adding an objective theme 6, enable housing supply and related headline target. We haven't specified that target, so we still work on exactly how we might measure and what is a measurable element of housing supply. But just to note that we're adding a whole thing and an extra target there, related text around it. And then endorses the 7 objectives that are existing there. Confirms they reduced this minimised in objective 2 and objective 4. I think we could actually cover that directly, so that we're comfortable around that. High level of direction of those headline targets, and again, just to that, I guess, health check that I was talking about is housing supply the only one that you want to make sure that's in here. And then last one is adds an additional headline target. So this is sub-objective thing to the economic prosperity objective thing around congestion. So there'll be 2 headline targets under economic prosperity, one being congestion. And again, we'll work out the
that is different ways to come back to on the wording rather than having to write those objectives today. We'll give us some time to get that wording right.
No time is of the essence at the moment, and sometime until the next regional transport committee meeting. So how can we fast track this, knowing the pressure of time constraints all of
Through the chair, this has been a really constructive conversation for staff. The additional direction is very much appreciated. Ultimately, it's the Regional Transport Committee's plan, our staff's plan. With the direction we've received today, I feel that we've heard enough to continue chipping away at the coalface in terms of the development work that we're undertaking. We have got another workshop scheduled on the 4th of August. That's primarily to discuss the prioritisation framework, which I know will be of significant interest to members. But there is also ample time at that workshop for us to bring by what that point should be the final wordsmith objectives, targets back, hopefully for agreement at that point, and then endorsement at the subsequent committee meeting.
We can't resolve anything at that meeting, but we can give you direction.
Yeah, the direction has been very clear and very helpful today.
Commissioner, so when you happy with that? Not harping on here about time constraints and the pressure that's on you and then others in regards to this issue.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks to Mona for bringing up the recommendations. I'm very happy with them as they stand, and TCC is very happy to lend support in terms of providing some of those KPIs or data availability, whatever assistance the staff may need.
We should meet in.
Just a couple of points for bear in mind. So under 4, it should be adds an additional objective theme 6 of enable housing supply rather than 2 enable housing supply.
Sorry.
So under number 4 there, I suggest it should be adds an additional objective theme 6 of 1 and 2. And then the other point is the this debate between reduced and minimised. And I was struggling to read.
They came out on the last
It did. Perhaps staff would like to comment if they could about what the implications of that are, because it seemed pretty. I was struggling to find the difference really, but yeah.
Oliver, you're on the spot.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, we are very much in the nitty-gritty of wordsmithing at this point. There was some discussion at the workshop around swapping out minimised, which is the word we use currently for reduced. I guess staff were just reflecting post-workshop that minimised implies reducing something to a fairly low level. Reduced, well, you could reduce something by 1%. So if the committee's intent was to bring things down to the lowest level possible, then minimised would be the more appropriate word, but we really are down in the weeds at this point.
It's all about degrees of emphasis and weightings, as I recall. Okay, have we done Mr. Beth? You happy to move 1 to 7, Commissioner Selwyn? And the Honourable Ken Shirley. No further discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Well done, everyone, and special thanks to the staff. Thank you, everyone, for your indulgence and buying for that 5-minute adjournment. So, Andrew, finally on stage, page 61. Regional Land Transport Plan Implementation Report. That's pretty much what you rules to. So, go for it.
Thank you, Chair. So we were seeing the implementation report and asking for a number of things to do, but essentially what the implementation report does is it provides a summary of the current RLTP progress towards achieving the same program. The summary provides in this appendix is structured against the 7 GPS activity classes, which is how the RLTP is structured in the working program document. And there's also a low cost, low risk category, which helps to illustrate where low cost, low risk activities are at. So these updates are provided by our TLA partners, Commitee and ourselves. So I am the messenger with a lot of this information. But what you see here is a fairly recent reflection of where the program is at.
So I'll take the report I just read, but I guess at a very high level, we're seeing some quite good progress across the RTP program, with 27 of the 60 activities outlined as green, or as progressing well. 22 are progressing, but slower than expected, and that's illustrated with the red, it's going to red, the orange colour, and 9 are not progressing as planned, and they are red. Then we've got 2 others that are black and green. So I'm happy to open the floor to questions.
Questions or comments to anything? Being none, I'll move we receive the report and note its contents. Seconded by the Honourable Ken Shirley. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carry. You're about to leave us shortly, are you? Okay. Was this in case you wanted to report on anything happening in the line, but we'll go pretty quick. Andrew, 77, Regional Land Transport Planning and Monitoring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So similarly, this is reflecting on the current program. This paper illustrates where we are at with the monitoring of the RTP itself, and it illustrates against the 27 KPI in the current RTP, whether they've been achieved or they haven't been achieved for the last financial year. And just briefly, of the 27 KPI, there's a discussion in the paper after a review. I actually got one number wrong. It's 14 that have been met rather than 15. Apologies for that. 3 have been partially met, and 6 have not been met. 4 have insufficient data to provide a result. Overall, this is a strong result, looking at it on a very factual basis for the last year, but we know that with data, with trends, we can't see everything that sits behind this. So there's a lot more storytelling that could be told. And the way that we've illustrated the information is a progression on how we've done the past of now utilising a dashboard which pulls information from various sources across the country and across the region to provide these actuals. I would say that over the last 12 months we've done a really good job of joining targets, which I think was mentioned in the report last year. We were thinking about 15 KPI weren't able to be measured because of data insufficiencies. That's also because of the COVID environments over the last few years where resourcing and data collection was slightly altered. And I would say that while we are seeing some strong progress and some good signs in some of these KPI, the RTP is only one component which actually impacts where these KPI get to, and as Councillor Lees has mentioned previously, we've got a bunch of other funds now. The RTP is not the only fund that delivers progress for the transport system, so a lot of these KPIs could actually be being or the results could be a reflection of a number of other pots of money that are doing good things outside our RTP process too. And that's probably it from me really. I could run through at a high level on some of the KPI, but there is some commentary in the paper, so I might just jump to questions first.
Questions or comments to anything? Being none, I'll move. Oh, I'm sorry, beg your pardon.
Just some of no data available. So surely we have the data around satellite condition, for example.
That one might have been a time issue with when the data came in.
Okay.
But yeah.
So on, for example, environmental sustainability, it strikes me that energy use per kilometres per litre of fuel, we're never going to measure that. So how do we get that data? So why is it even in there? Yeah, I wonder if we should rationalise this a little bit. Right? We're just going to keep on reporting that we can't measure that one, surely.
Clarification, Oliver.
Through the chat, it's a really good point that's been raised. Some of these KPIs are ambitious. and going through the rationalisation process with the development of our RLTP 2024, we want to make sure that, especially our headline targets, but also any KPIs that we put in are easily measurable. We want to devote staff time to actually delivering against the plan rather than trying to scrub around measuring things.
Clear?
I think I heard it covered off, which was the energy use. I guess I'm trying to understand what that is measuring, because it seems an exorbitantly high amount of energy use for 1 litre of fuel, per kilometres per litre of fuel. If it's just for the typical, commuters and so forth, but are we talking, is this the total energy in the whole transport system and all modes, including freight and so forth?
So this KPI, through the chair, this is Andrew speaking, it's captured by kilometres travelled in the region and four-wheel vehicles, that includes cars, vans, used and SUVs, per litre of fuel purchased. But as Oliver's mentioned, I think there's some KPIs that sit within this which won't have cut in a few months' time for the next RLTP. It's something we're looking at changing in your that process, so we're looking forward to having that conversation with you.
Did you hear that, Glenn?
Almost. I'll take it offline. I know it's hard for everyone.
I'm sorry, we apologise for the sound, but just have a chat to Andrew offline. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'll move the recommendation on page 77, second this week. If there are all those in favour, please say aye. It's carried.
Aye.
On the home straight now, verbal updates, and Greg, I know you've got to go. Do you have anything happening in the freight sector you'd like to bring to our attention?
State of the roads, used in all the things we're talking about.
Just put your microphone.
I guess it's just the state of the roads, go back to resilience, and if you're going to have diversions, we need to have those conversations early. Congestion, it's just ongoing.
Stacey, Automobile Association, anything you want to front of us?
No, nothing specific. It's probably not said over there. That's what our members are really focused on, is road maintenance, resilience. That's probably our biggest concerns.
Thank you. Glenn, anything in your neck of the woods?
No, I think just to report that people I interact with are in the sustainability area are deeply concerned about future funding levels, which are perceived as likely to hold back environmentally beneficial projects, as well as all the other projects that may be held back.
Well, head's nodding here, you can't see Glenn, so. Angus, are you there from Angus?
I am, yes, and I have nothing to offer on this time, sorry.
All the ferries on time and trains running?
They are today, yes.
Wonderful. I think that's everyone at Angus. Anyone else want to drop anything on us while we're here? Oh, sorry, I think you told Michael.
Just to highlight a recent staff change, we've got a new manager of operations starting in our team, who is Stuart Nightingale, who was previously with this committee. So he'll be working with the team at transport for the month.
Seemed to just said he's a policeman.
He was a policeman.
He was a policeman. Anything else, anybody, before we close the meeting? I'll close the meeting, but particular thanks to staff today for your contribution and your reports, and for your indulgence on the Zoom. We know it's been with some difficulty, but proves the point we should stay home and not go out around the provinces. Okay, with that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you everyone for your attendance, and drive safely. Amanda's going to send you all out